as soon as we can. This opportunity is really here to look at what is currently coming up in the market, what are the emerging trends, challenges and opportunities, and we'll be joined by a different BTEC author on each occasion, offer up to an hour to look at practical guidance, including key skills for career development. As discussed, we'll be joined today by Jeremy Green. He's covering information security and what the future holds, and we'll be covering off career overviews, tips and topics, a bit of Jeremy's own career to date, what information security is, why is it important, what is coming up in the future, and as well as that, it's the rationale for the Information Security Management Principles 4th edition update, which Jeremy authored with us, including emerging trends that have been added to the book to cover off new technology, new risk vectors that people are experiencing. We will be holding Q&A at the end of the call. You can probably see the Q&A button. Please add your questions there. We will have some sample questions as well we can run through at the end in case anybody needs a bit of a prompt. But otherwise, very much looking forward to the next 20-25 minutes with Jeremy, and then we'll jump into the questions. Please do jump in with any questions that you've got. We'll field them and make sure we can get to as many of them at the end as possible, but we won't be able to go over the hour mark. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to you, Jeremy.
Hello, thank you, Ian. Good afternoon, all, and thank you very much for attending this webinar. As Ian said, what I'm going to do is sort of look at information security, a little bit of my career, and how that sort of transpired, and then sort of towards the end a little bit about the rationale for the book and the updates that I undertook, with this being a sort of a 4th edition. So we'll start sort of a bit of my background, because like many people, it's funny when I talk to many people within the security industry, you know, it does pull in people from a wide variety of backgrounds and avenues, because the first thing to say, security is not technical. It is not just technical. Everybody automatically assumes when we're talking about security, and I'm talking about IT stroke cyber security, as well as the wider security piece here. Not necessarily technical. There is a technical element to it, without a doubt. I'm a geek. I've always said I'm a self-confessed geek. I'm very much on the technical side of security, but I've been lucky to sort of worked across sort of several different fields and areas within that area. So in terms of my career, really, you've got 4 buckets on the screen. Believe it or not, I still actually do all 4 of those buckets. I'll sort of pull that out as we go through it. But my early career was actually in teaching. I started after university doing a few jobs like selling cars and working in leisure centre. I ended up teaching. And I still say to this day, there is no better way to learn than to teach. If you really want to know a subject well, delivering it to other people, whether it, you know, to your direct team, to peers, it's a great way to learn, because of course by delivering it, you get to learn that information better and better, and of course accumulate it. So my early career was basically teaching. I delivered initially IT qualifications, commercial type, you know, what was called IBTQ, and basic, you know, literacy skills, before then moving into teaching sort of formally, 16 to 19, IT computer science, BTEC, A-levels, and that was a big part of sort of my career. And then alongside of that, I sort of brought in, I had an interest always had an interest in the police and potentially a police career. So I joined as a volunteer police officer back in 2005. So that was running alongside sort of my teaching. I came to a point in my career where I was not sure which way to go. So I actually spent some time as an IT trainer within the police force, and that's where I got into cybercrime. And that's where I suppose my love of and passion for security came from. And then at the same time as that, really, I was on and wanted to be a full-time police officer. So I did do that for, I think, only for 12 months in the end, because it wasn't really quite what I wanted in terms of career-wise. So I ended up back in a college, and I set up one of the first cybersecurity courses in the country, which was new, but I still hadn't quite found where I wanted to be. And what I'm trying to say here is sometimes you do jobs because you're not quite sure what to want to do. And funnily enough, I've got my eldest who's in that same situation I was, and try different things till you find what your true passion and calling is. And I ended up at Firebrand teaching certifications. Because I was teaching, I ended up with shed loads, literally virtually every CompTIA certification, EC Council as well. So it was nicely building out those sort of skills. And then I suppose that's led into me doing some work for IT governance as a contractor. So I've been working for them as well for about 3 or 4 years, helping support courses, design courses, and deliver courses. And then if we move on to the right-hand side, because of that underpinning knowledge I gained, the certifications, the soft skills, which we'll come on to, because remember, soft skills are just as important in any career as what I call the technical and knowledge-based skills. I sort of after Firebrand, I went to BT, working within their security operations centre environment, coaching and teaching analysts and supporting them. Then on to Vodafone. That was really interesting. I was working for Africa. I was supporting Africa cybersecurity-wise. It was seven African countries, and then also India and Qatar. And it was really interesting to see security cultures, and they are different, even within the African countries. You had Ghana, which were very, very laid back. You had Tanzania and Kenya, who wanted everything doing straight away, were very, very precise. And then you had sort of South Africa in the middle. It was very, very interesting how each one had its own culture of the way it would approach and deal with cybersecurity, and the way I had to handle them. So that was a really, really, really interesting job. And at the moment, full time, I'm a security architect for Leidos, working on a sort of a military project. Really, really interesting again, and obviously does use a mixture of technical skills as well as those information security skills, because really, when we talk about a security architect, it's like you're a cyber engineer and you're an information security person all in one. And your job is to try and work across those two teams and do a lot of liaison. Again, I absolutely love the role. It's really interesting. And I suppose that then spins me finally back to the bucket I've not really covered is my military career. On and off, I've been in the TA back in the 1990s. I then rejoined the Army Reserves in 2017. And then was basically told what you're doing here, you should be joining the Cyber Reserve. So I went through the board process and got selected, and I chose to join the RAF because it was a really good unit, and I've been with them about 6 years now. So I do a lot of work with them. Again, military work. It nicely dovetails into my Leidos work and vice versa. I'm away with them next week delivering assist course, because I do a lot of instruction now with the RAF, because that's one of my main skills, and because I hands-on cybersecurity during the week, if you like, it's nice to then to go and do something I don't do normally. So I do quite a lot of instruction with teaching personnel how to use different systems, or some of the military type skills they need within cyber, and then also the sort of certification side. And it's really, for me, it's about the fact that I've sort of blended things together. I've not known which way my career was ever going to go. Both my parents were teachers. I know it was vowed never to be a teacher, and I ended up being a teacher. I did do some part-time work in a school and things like that over the years. So, but I loved it, so I stayed with it, and I stayed with it until I lost the passion. The minute I lost the passion, I was then looking for something different and new. And of course, I still, to this day, I'll always love to teach, but I do enjoy having that sort of, what I call that sort of hands-on blend, if you like, between the two. So very much, as I said, it's sort of a pathway that's meandered at times, a career that's moved. But the key thing is as soon as I've realised I'm not doing something I fully enjoy, or I lose my enthusiasm and passion, I then look to see, well, really, I need to be doing something else, because you're a long time in a career these days. You can be a long time with an employer, and if you're doing something you don't enjoy, then what's the point in doing it? And that's also been my top tip, because the people that I found the most successful in careers are the ones with the passion and have a real interest in the subject matter, because they've chosen a career that really is them and suits their skill base, suits their interests. They're not in it just for a paycheck. They're actually in it because they actually enjoy it. They love what they do, and they have a passion for what they do. And that's very much how I've always said to mine. It's the same with the police. When I finally decide, because I'm a special sergeant currently, I'm uniform. I look after a small team of specials. But I've always said that when my passion runs dry with that, my interest runs dry with that, I will leave, because I don't see the point of doing something that's you're not getting anything out of, because it's a two-way street. You've got to gain and learn from what you're doing, and vice versa as well. So it's, as I said, it's very much about trying to build a career, and it's just an example of my career and how things can meander. So don't think that it's a job for life. Don't think it's a career for life. Just because you might not be quite doing what you want to do now doesn't mean you can't look towards the future and build the skills and build the knowledge that you need to then move in a totally different direction, because that's really where we're at. It has changed over the last few generations, really. There is no such thing the same as people stay in the same job all their career, all their life. You'll often find you'll have two or three sort of multiple careers. I'm very lucky that I have multiple. I still teach at Burton College. I teach on a degree program one night a week. As I said, I still work with the police. A lot of it is around the admin side, because I've got a small team. Still serve with the RAF, and then of course I still do obviously a full-time Joe role within cybersecurity. So again, any questions about this area, we'll sort of pick up when we get to that area, towards the end of it. So sort of moving on now then, a little bit about the book I wrote, the rationale for it, if you like. So you can see that sort of spread of knowledge and experience, and a lot of it gained from a lot of amazing people I've met over the years. I will say, I could have a whole list of people that have influenced me, or little bits and nuggets of information, or I've learned from. There's so much to learn from others, and that's really a lot of what's in this book, is trying to build that in, because with those different hats, looking at it from a education perspective, looking at it from a certifications perspective, and an industrial person working in it, what I've tried to do with this book is try to align it to all. No easy task, but it's trying to make sure that everybody who picks it up gets something out of it. I wanted to make sure as well we're bringing the latest technologies. So there's quite a section on obviously AI, although you'll have arguments within the industry still, and I'm probably on the camp that I don't think it's true AI. I often joke with people that ChatGPT is just basically Google on steroids that gives you the answers, and it's not that far removed from where we're actually at. And it's very interesting seeing, Keir Starmer talking about AI this week and things like that. I think people still need to understand it has got a purpose and it's got a use, but we have to think about how we're using it and the impact that might bring in as well. So I think that's quite important as well. Again, it was designed for a wide foundation. Try and make sure that everybody could pick something up from it, because as I said straight away on the start of the call, those working in security, there isn't all about technical roles, because that's always been a misconception. There's many roles that aren't technically, well, you don't need any real technical requirements other than what I call the basic foundations, which is what this book's about, so that if people say certain words or terms or technology, you understand it. You don't need to know how it works, but you need to know what they're talking about. I work with people that aren't technically minded, but by God, they're brilliant at their job. And I could list as long as your arm of people I've worked with over the years that are non-technical, but absolutely superb in security and are linchpins within the business, but they're not technically minded. They just see things in a slightly different perspective, and often give that narrative or that understanding that other people don't see were technically minded. Classic example was going into a meeting with a technical person, and all they did was upset all the senior management, because they were basically ranting and raving about having a technical solution, and then somebody else who was non-technically minded said, but have we thought about this? Could we do that? And again, it just took the sting out of it and brought it back down, because they saw it through a slightly different pair of eyes. It is designed as well to support certifications, so that although it's a foundational level, from here, because I teach things like CISM, CIST, CEH, being sort of the three most toply requested certifications, I wanted it also to try and give that starting to build that underpinning knowledge for those three courses as well. Yes, they do need more than this book, but it gives that underpinning knowledge to then build on and gain experience, and also to be a bit more of a usable reference. There's a lot of NIST in there. Those of you know or have heard of NIST, American Standards Organization, there is a bigger move within the UK for using of NIST, the NIST frameworks and some of the NIST bits and pieces. It is used within government. Certainly, it's used within the military environment as well. So that's an important part. Still looking at ISO and Centre for Internet Security as well. So again, it was trying to bring in tools, techniques, technologies to sort of bring us across. I put a section about quantum. We have to be considering that. There's something called post-quantum security, because there's a theory. It's not in practice yet. We're probably 5 to 10 years down the line that potentially some of the modern cryptographic systems that are out there will be broken by quantum computers, just because of their sheer power, their scale, and their abilities. But we are looking 5 to 10 years. And interestingly, from this book has actually led me into applying and being accepted onto a PhD, because some of the research I've been working on around the book was around quantum, and it gave me the idea of wanting to look at how we could create some quantum safe controls or systems and services that we could put in place to try and keep it sort of at a lower level, but thinking about how can we secure systems so that they are quantum secure. So that was part of what I very much wanted with the book as well. The previous author did a brilliant job. There was absolutely brilliant foundational stuff, so I didn't reinvent the wheel. I looked at what was there and very much used it, because it's very much a book that should evolve and will evolve, because it's not a snapshot in time. It never is. Some of the things that I write in the book, I can almost guarantee by next year will have changed slightly or be amended. It's really, really hard to predict the future. So it's very much a point in time book as well, but trying to look ahead of what's coming down the line so that it stays relevant and it stays current, and it builds sort of those early careers. And this is all the sort of thought processes that went through my head. My biggest problem was thinking, not going down rabbit holes and ending up with a book that was like the size of a set of Encyclopedia Britannica, because it's such a big field, security is, and that's the other point back to my career. There's so many different avenues and careers you can do with it. Everybody, when you say cybersecurity, often they're straight away and the first thing they go, hacking, and it's no, that's not even a tenth of it. It's less than that. It's such a small element of it. It's so much wider than that, and ultimately, securing information is the whole reason that we've got cybersecurity or IT security, because of course if we've got information, we may have a reason or a rationale to secure it. Therefore, if we need to secure it, we need to put something in place, and often that's what we call people, process, and technology, because technology has a place. Technology can be put in badly, or technology can not be properly thought about and then put in place. You have to think about the people. People have to use it. People might be the problem. And of course, people need to be told and given guidance, hence the whole world, people, process, and sort of technology. And again, that's very much through this book that I wanted to try and get across as well, that it's not just let's just throw technology at it. No, it's actually a lot wider than that, because automation is here. But again, even with automation, it's to a point. It was an interesting, I think it was an interesting article I read only yesterday. And it was to do with Elon Musk, and he wanted full automation in the Tesla factory. And he sort of said, basically, this is what I want. And then he ended up having to go to the factory, and what he was watching robots put on bolts incorrectly, robots not hitting the same quality standards as a person. So Tesla was basically suffering quality issues. So they've actually ended up going back to people, because people were doing a higher quality and better job than robots. And that's back to that thing again about why we always will need people. AI might take some jobs, but it might then create others. People will always need to be part of the process. We're certainly not going to end up down Skynet and Terminator. Those of you that are a fan of those films or heard of those films, it's very much about keeping people at the center of what we do, because we need to keep people secure as well as our systems and our information secure. And that really is what the essence and the thread of the book that I wanted to do, that to try and give you that wide sort of angle. And at the end, I'm a big advocate of soft skills. Over the years, again, people that have been most successful are those that have got really good soft skills, good communicators, good interpersonal skills, whether it's presenting information, talking to people, putting it in writing. So soft skills are also a very, very important part, I think, of being good in any industry, not just security, but it's often forgotten about. It's always focused on technical skills or knowledge, but actually there's some other skills. And again, if you've got good soft skills, that might be a driver and help you get a job and secure it, because employers are still looking for soft skills. I know that when I interview, it's soft skills as well as the technical skills or the skills required by the job that I would be looking for. So just to come on to a last slide, a little bit about the book itself. It is available in paperback and print. Kindle version, there is EPUB versions as well, and sort of paperback versions. Very much aligned as well to support the CISMP, the new CISMP version 10, which I was honoured to be involved with others in creating that course and writing the new exam. That very much is a really good and important entry-level qualification. Again, for those looking into security, I highly recommend that as a course and a qualification. I've taught it. So I can no longer teach it because of being an examiner for it, but it's a very, very good sort of vehicle for those, again, looking at early careers. It is taught at university level, taught at college, and various providers as well. That sort of brings that sort of whistle-stop tour, looking a bit about my career and then a little bit about the book and the rationale and background to it. Nicely brings us on to questions. So I'll go back to Ian to see if there's anything available for me to answer yet.
That's what I said. I'll be back, and I was. I didn't actually say I'll be back. Someone else said that. We haven't got any questions live at the moment, but I think the first key question, and please do ask any questions. There's nothing we're not prepared for. One of the key questions is what would you say is the skill that's helped you the most in your career to date? Like helped you through in developing a cybersecurity career?
There's probably two elements to it. The first, believe it or not, is my enthusiasm and passion. It's something I've had over the years, but because I'm enthused and enjoy what I do, I think that drives me forward with a thirst to learn as well. Because I think if you, and I've always said that the same when I've been teaching stuff, if people enjoy what they're learning, they'll gather their own passion and enthusiasm for it, and that shows through attainment as well as knowledge. So that's very much my top tip, is do something that drives your passion and enthusiasm, and you'll be amazed at what you can achieve.
Thank you for that. Because you mentioned it earlier, I'm gonna bring this next one up. As in terms of key technical skill, I've just seen another question. I'll ask this one quickly. What would you say the key technical skill is to making sure we're dealing with security challenges of AI?
It's actually back to people skills, because when we think about AI and how it's used in businesses now, people don't understand what's happening with the AI. So certainly for me, from an educational point of view and looking at the systems and services that we've had, it's educating people to not be just putting in sensitive data into ChatGPT, for example, because basically then it's ingesting your private data. So for me, it's understanding that basic understanding of the mechanism of how it's working and some of the guardrails that we need to have in place to make sure that we're not just giving away data to ChatGPT, because then it gets ingested and that means everybody can see it. So it's very much around privacy and keeping data protected and what you're putting in.
Thank you, Jeremy. So the question we've got in is, does the book talk about the cybersecurity skills shortage? And in that, there have been some recent layoffs in the cybersecurity domain. I wonder what your thoughts are on A, people being laid off, and B, having a skills gap.
It's an interesting one. I don't really talk about the skills gap per se in the book, because it's in different sectors and different angles of security, you'll get different answers. There is definitely a shortage. The problem we have at the moment is there's not enough entry-level jobs. So that's actually where there's a lot of demand for entry-level jobs. You'll find it's the sort of upper medium to high level where there is a skills gap. Some of this, I will go all the way back now to with my education hat on, having taught computer science at GCSE level. That's actually a turn off to a lot of people doing IT, because remember, certainly if you're going down the technical side or you're going into cyber security, which is IT security, you need that underpinning IT knowledge. So you'll find that people are jumping onto it, but they're not necessarily got the background in the IT skills. So certainly if you're going down the technical avenue, recommendation is make sure you've got good IT skills. And by that, you understand how a network works, you understand what an operating system is, because how can you secure it if you don't understand how it operates? So that's probably one of the areas.
Actually, thank you for that. I think one of the other questions that came up for me, and it kind of builds on what you just said, is if there are needs for more upper and sort of middle career cybersecurity stuff, in terms of professional skills, what are the key things to be learning or practicing that will help people to progress from, whether in IT careers or lower level cyber analyst roles into higher level careers? Like, in terms of, you mentioned a bit around communications, but what would you recommend as professional skills people need to learn?
Again, it's very much the skill you're going to need as you move up. We're talking about leadership skills to a point as well, which people can build up from different areas from experience. But it's back to what those basic soft skills, a bit the ability to communicate something very technical into layman's terms. If you're communicating to senior management, and I've done it several, I've had to present to the Vodafone board. You have to make the assumption that they're not technically minded, because actually that's the best place to start with. Don't assume people are technically knowledgeable. Make the assumption that they're not, and then talk about it in a layman's terms. So sometimes that's a skill that people struggle with, taking something highly, highly technical, break it into bite-sized chunks and into a language that other people will understand. That's one valuable skill. The ability to present and communicate at all levels, like I said, back to around, talking to people, being able to communicate in email, and emotional intelligence. Funny enough, it's another big part of security. If you think about where security sits in an organization, it's everywhere. It's part of the whole organization. It's not just, it's not a standalone department. It's actually part of the organization. That is one of the big battles still to get business to realize that. But because you're part of the organization, stakeholder management skills in terms of being able to manage people from different areas, people that may have, not want to engage with security because they just see security as the blocking department, the no department. So that's another part of it as well. It's almost like a sales skill, overcoming objections, building a rapport. And I found that a lot of sort of my career with BT and Vodafone, and even now, is around stakeholder management, bringing them on board, bringing them on the journey, getting them to understand why you're doing it and the importance of doing it. And that is, again, another really, really, really important skill. And you will now see it in job descriptions. Stakeholder management outlined as a skill for job requirements. So that's one of my top tips to want to look at and build on.
Smashing. Thank you very much. The next question along is, what are the most sought after skills in cyber currently?
That's a really good question, because there's different buckets. If we're talking about the penetration testing side, I will say to most people that is getting, one, it's got over-soaked and overloaded, and secondly, AI is going to be able to do a lot of that work. So I think the skills, where the skill areas is development, so software development, that side, although it's not directly related to security, you have to still have security and a mind put onto that. Other areas that are showing shortages is information security. People understanding information security in that side, because again, a lot of people who are interested in cybersecurity will go, I want to do the technical, I want to go and hack. But forget that this is an area, so there's actually a shortage within information security, and roles are increasingly difficult to fill in that area. So that side of work, and remember, information security is not technical. It can be technical, but it is not technical. It's literally looking at, what is a risk. When we talk about risks, we all take them every day, don't we? We may walk across the road. Well, we're not just going to walk across the road blindly. We're going to look left and right before we cross that road. Well, that's risk management. If I'm looking left and right, I'm managing the risk of being hit by a car by looking left and right before I cross. that whole section is non-technical, and being able to understand, the harm that the organisation might come under from the various threats that are out there, from all the way from weather to your hackers to political changes, regulation changes. These are all risks that business has to know. And again, it's non-technical to be able to understand those.
Smashing, thank you for that. And in terms of looking at sources, obviously the book is a good source when you're thinking about some of the certifications we've mentioned, but would you recommend any particular podcasts or any other security expert that are worth following to look at kind of what's coming up in this space?
Yeah, I follow Hacker News. I get daily updates with that. That's quite an interesting area. I find that very, very interesting. Hacker News. Other things I would recommend, not just sort of following, but engaging with. So if you want the more technical skills, I highly recommend try HackMe. That is a free-to-use platform. Yes, you can subscribe to it, but you can learn an awful lot for free. I still use that in my deliveries. Basically because it gives people a hands-on and I've been using it for about 4 or 5 years now. So there's that as a free platform. Professor Messer has some amazingly brilliant videos that you can watch free again on YouTube. So they are for things like A+, Security+, and Network+, so CompTIA certs. However, they're very, very easy, nice little sound bites if you're wanting to learn sort of little bits of the sort of more technical side as well. Dark Web Diaries, very, very interesting one that's on YouTube as well, one to watch. And then also knowledge bases like Microsoft and IBM. It's amazing between those two companies. They virtually cover every single topic you can think of. They've got white papers or information on. They're very, very useful ones to look at. And things you can read and do. I think the biggest problem with cybersecurity actually, Ian, is probably the reverse. There's almost an information overload, and it's trying to get the wheat from the chaff and look at what is a good information source and what's going to help and support me. And that sometimes is personal because what I think is really informative and is useful to me might not be to another. But they're some of the ones I've recommended regularly over the years, to sort of look at and dive into and utilize as information.
Smashing. Thank you for that. Just double checking if there's anything else in the questions. Obviously you mentioned sort of the overwhelming amount of information out there. And you mentioned as well, obviously, there's the BCS Foundation Certificate in Information Security Management Principles, which the book aligns with. Which are the key certificates that you see most often in this space? And where do you think people could go in terms of memberships to really help them progress in their careers? Or does it depend? And if so, how?
Yeah. The entry level the qualifications, to be fair, a lot of them are very similar in that they're designed to give a broad spread. So CISMP, for example, is a broad spread. One of the things, hidden values, by the way, of CISMP, interestingly, is there's no maintenance fees. Once you've got CISMP, you've got it for life. With a lot of the other certifications, you have to pay a yearly fee for. CompTIA is not too bad, to be fair. It's $60 a year to maintain there. So you've got CISMP, you've got Security+, and you've got another one called Certified Network Defender. They're sort of what I call entry-level certifications. If you're sort of more networky, there's things like Cisco, CCNA. And the idea of all of these is to try to give you sort of what I call a sort of a broader sort of area of expertise before sort of building into the next area. And then I suppose the next tier very much is where you decide, almost like a bit like you're going from GCSEs to A levels, and then to university. You're sort of deciding, well, do I want to specialise? So the next tier up, you could look into sort of entry level cloud or intermediate cloud, security analyst, CYSA. I've said CEH in that, but that's more offensive security. It's not a penetration testing qualification per se. It's a offensive security qualification. Having taught it now for 6 or 7 years, it's evolved, but the word CEH has had to stay because it's a brand, a global brand. You can't just change it, but you don't walk out after 5 days as a hacker with that one, but you understand how someone could attack you. I've always said CEHs like CYSA Plus and Pentest Plus together. Other ones, ISACA, de-risk. So if you wanted to go into sort of risk management, take it a tier up from what you see in the Information Security Principles book and CISMP, you're going to sort of see risk. So that's what I call is the intermediate tier. And then after that, really, you're going into what I call more advanced careers, things like CISP, CISM. Both of those require 5 years of experience, not 5 years in security. They want so many years, probably at least 3 years experience in it. Both of them, if you've got a degree in cybersecurity, you can get a year off and things like that. So there's caveats, but ultimately they need 5 years of experience. You can do things like OCSP, which is an advanced penetration testing qualification. If you wanted to go into that area, you can go more heavily into sort of cloud or the infrastructure side as well. So very much there's a whole wealth of a sort of pathways, and I think that's another problem we have, that there's almost too many pathways. But one of the top tips I tend to give to everybody is, you know, look at a certification that you want to aim for, as in higher up, and work a pathway backwards. Also consider that if you are doing multiple different vendors, as I know, being an instructor and having to be certified to teach what I still teach, you will pay yearly fees, and it does mount up. You know, as I said, it's $60 a year for CompTIA. It's $80 a year for EC Council. ISACA is $85 per year per cert for the first two. Then it drops to $70. ICS, which is CISP, that's $120 a year. So you've got all these maintenance fees as well to thing in as well. So again, that's another part that I bring in. You know, you've got to think of the whole life cost. But certifications alongside education do help. Don't ever let anybody let you believe that, you know, by doing this certification it will open up every door possible. It doesn't. All certifications do is help you get through application tracking systems that are looking for certain certs, and at the same time they also help you sort of, I suppose, open up doors to, you know, getting through different systems or services, and also giving you some skills that might then help you move on.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. It does sound like it can be fairly complicated. And I think,
yes,
you know, whenever you look at information security and see the number of different references out, there are multiples, but getting it right on the basic level does sound like it's manageable with the right kind of guidance. So that's really useful. We're going to post a last call for any questions now, please. If anybody's got anything else that they really wanted to get out of this webinar, then please just drop us a question. I haven't actually got any additional questions written down at the moment, but I would say that the author webinar series is continuing the rest of the year. I think we mentioned we'll be covering lots of different topics, including AI, machine learning, agentic AI, looking at careers in tech in general. Data governance is coming up as well. And we have many more planned out. So there's lots of different aspects that we'll be covering, which will all depend on good cybersecurity, but also depend on learning different disciplines and applying those within business domains. And I think those have been the key requirements I've seen from a lot of employers, getting the skills and being able to apply those within a business. And if you can do that, you start to get onto the pathway for the senior roles. Okay, so Lawrence has very kindly shared the link to the webinar series. There will be additional sessions being posted to that shortly, so you can sign up. I believe you can sign up for the whole series. You should be able to get recommendations from that. If not, please do sign up for individual sessions that you're interested in. We'll go to the final slide, please, Jeremy, while we're waiting to see if there's any other final question. And what we're just going to do here is thank you very much for everybody for joining. The next step really is a BCS resource looking at how you build your digital career. And what this does is help take you through some simple questions about different kind of roles that you can have, different certifications, different skills that you can apply, and different ways you can build your knowledge and advance your careers. So it's on https://bit.ly BCS digital career. It's also QR code, and you can find it on the BCS website as well. If you need anything from BCS Publishing, please do visit us at shop.bcs.org, and you'll be able to find different routes to contact us. or through request any kind of feedback on any particular titles that you need, you'll be able to contact us through the bookshop. Finally, no more questions are coming in, so I think we can call it short. Thank you very much, Jeremy. It's been a great session. We look forward
And thank you for your time. Thank you to all
thank you very much. And thank you very much for everyone attending, and we look forward to seeing you all in the future. Cheers and goodbye.
Cheers. Goodbye.